Well, look no further. Ask and you shall receive, Katie. We want to welcome in Mark Pryor, now longtime pitching coach for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's been, of course, with the staff for a number of years, including as a bullpen coach before becoming the pitching coach. Mark, great to be with you as always. Thank you. We were just talking about the depth of your starting rotation, and we're interested in knowing, I mean, is this possibly the most formidable pitching staff that you've ever worked with going into a season? I hate to have you rank your guys, right? You're kind of like ranking your kids, but man, you've got a lot to work with.
Well, one, I won't rank my kids, and I won't rank my pitchers either. Look, I mean, we're blessed, from a standpoint, from our ownership standpoint, from management, that they've gone out and acquired a lot of talent, a lot of really high-end talent. And so it's a fun group to work with. At the end of the day, they want to win. They enjoy competing against other teams. They enjoy competing, and pushing each other. It's just a fun group to work with. I think that's ultimately, as a staff, you enjoy the moments because they care and have such a passion for their craft, and so that's what makes it a lot of fun and a pleasure to work with these guys.
Mark, hi, my name's Katie. You'll meet me officially next week down at Camelback Ranch, but thanks so much for joining our show. I wanted to ask a little bit about Yamamoto, because we know he's going to go play in the WBC for Team Japan. He also had that heroic, monstrous performance for you guys in the World Series last year. When you're looking at workload, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, is he maybe still a little bit tired from his performance last year? Is this something where you're going to be monitoring his workload because he pitched so extensively so late for you guys in the season? What's the plan for him to start spring?
Well, I mean, that's the nature of the WBC. There's no perfect time to have a tournament like this, but this is where the schedule falls. And so Yama's been, getting ready for his 2026 season, since, he kind of picked up from his rest after the World Series. He's in a great spot. He feels good. He wouldn't do this if he wasn't feeling good. He made that very clear, I think, to ourselves as well as to Japanese officials, that he needed to make sure and kind of take stock on where he was at. He feels great. I mean, I think what he did last year in the playoffs was unprecedented. But I think he's in a good spot right now. And as from a workload standpoint, he's prepared. We'll get him ready to go out and be able to compete in the WBC. And then once, because of the limitations that are set forth kind of in the parameters that they have for pitchers, it's not that much different from standpoint of what it would be with us. Obviously, the intensity and the magnitude of those games is going to be more, so it's hard to, account for that. But he's going to be in a good spot, and he'll be ready to go once the season starts. He's a unique individual. He takes unbelievable care of himself. Last year was special to watch him, navigate his season, and ultimately, reach the pinnacle at the end and doing some things that's, I know it's been said, like, probably won't see again. And he wanted to win just as much as anybody, and he just, he felt like he was in a position to do some things that were extraordinary.
Yeah, special stuff from him. And if he's the type of dude who needs a blow either early in the season or later in the season, the good thing is you guys got a lot of arms. You got a lot of bodies there, very high end, a lot of talented dudes. We are entering year 2 of Roki Sasaki. Obviously, a lot to build on for the dude. The ceiling is very high, and we've heard a lot so far over the last, really, I guess, weekend. He's working on adding a little bit, a few wrinkles to the pitch mix, maybe a little bit of a cutter, a little bit of a two-seamer. What are those kind of conversations looking like as we try to make, build Roki into a high quality major league starter? We've seen him do it as a reliever, of course, but building him into a starter, and how do you make the cutter and two-seamer not necessarily affect that splitter forkball?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it there at the end. I mean, it's ultimately he has a high velocity fastball when he's right, and he has that nasty, split finger pitch. So adding those other pitches has been a conversation been going on since the beginning of last summer, even when he was on the IL. But you don't want to take away from what his strengths are. So it'll constantly be not managed, but monitored more, just so that we're not pulling back from the other things. But we do that with everybody, with all guys. We're in an era where, because of the technology and the resources that everybody has, guys are able to test things out on a much more regular basis. So you're always making sure that they're not pulling back from what their strengths are. And I think with Roki, it was an interesting year. It's a learning year, no matter how he slices it. It started off, obviously with high expectations. The injury comes, a role transition, pitching in big moments in the playoffs. So there's a lot for him to kind of, digest and learn from, like all major leaguers, no matter, whether they're, high school, college, or you're coming over from, the Japanese or Korean baseball leagues. I mean, there's a lot to learn at that level. And so I think he's probably had a lot of time to reflect over the winter on what went right, maybe for him, what went wrong, what he needs to do to prepare, to come into camp and be ready to try to, put a good foot forward to be a starter. I think the part that needs to kind of still be ironed out is we never really got to see the full version of, or the healthy version of Roki as a starter. And so I think that's intriguing for, I think, everybody. I think at the end we got a taste of it, of a healthy Roki. I think this year we're going to see the full version of Roki, and then we get to actually see him grow and mature as a starting pitcher in the major leagues.
Nothing but upside for Roki Sasaki, Mark. I want to talk about the 6th spot in the Dodgers starting rotation, perhaps the one question mark. Dave and Andrew Friedman, of course, very high on. I'm just going to give you 3 names: Emmett Sheehan, River Ryan, and Gavin Stone. Make the case, or what should we know about each of those young men? What can they bring?
I mean, look, all 3 of those guys are going to pitch for the Los Angeles Dodgers at some point this season. I think if one thing has been consistent over the years is that we use our roster either out of guys performing in the minor leagues and pitching well, or out of need because I think some guys have, had, some injuries. All 3 of those guys I think are going to impact our roster to win, and how and in what degree. I can't tell you that. The one thing that I think that I've learned now going into my, 7th season or 8th season, whatever it is, every year's been different, but we've been consistently knowing that we do need starters at some point. And so I think with Gavin Stone, I mean, you look at a guy 2 years ago who you could probably say was kind of almost like our bedrock in our rotation at the time. The guy all the way through August was one of our most consistent pitchers. He would give us, games where he'd go deep into games. He'd give us huge impact games. I remember against the Padres with some big strikeouts and some unbelievable performances. So, he's got that talent. He came up in his rookie year, and he had a lot of learning experiences from understanding who he was as a pitcher, what he can do to dominate, what his strengths were, to tipping. And then that coming back in that, 24 season, what he did was unbelievable. So I expect him to, probably we'll have to figure out where he's at. He was just because of the timeline, he never really got out to pitch a whole lot. So we'll kind of see whether or not where we're at with him from a standpoint at the end of spring and how he competes. Emmett Sheehan did what he did last year. I mean, coming off of Tommy John, he got thrown right into the fire. I think it was against the Giants in a game, and he stepped up big time. He had a lot of big performances down the stretch, and a lot of games where I think he was key to our success, where we started picking up and really started firing on all cylinders. So he's going to be in that mix for sure. And then River Ryan, look, I mean, we only got to see a taste of him that year. He came up for us out of necessity, and he, that game he threw against the Astros was unbelievable. And I don't think any of us, we knew the stuff was there, but for him to put it all together in that one performance, I think that's the ceiling that you're looking for. And I think it's, in all accounts, he finished off his rehab progression last year. He's bigger, he's stronger. I think he understands what it takes to prepare to pitch at this level. So I think we're all excited to kind of see a little bit more of him, just because we didn't see a lot of him the last time. But excited to see him in a much more extended look this year. And again, I think all 3 of them are going to impact. It's just hard to pinpoint when that's going to be and how.
Mark, when you look at how this roster is shaping up, it's the first time that you are slated to have a full 2-way Shohei Ohtani there is going to be some workload. Dave Roberts said at FanFest, he's going to be using Ohtani as a traditional starter, but the usage might not be on a 5-day schedule. You might get a 6-7 day rotation or for Ohtani, just kind of to keep him healthy to start the year. What are you seeing from Ohtani, and what's kind of the plan to start his spring?
Yeah, right now he's throwing bullpens. I mean, he is last year, was obviously a very unique year. He was coming off Tommy John, and then he had the shoulder injury on the non-throwing arm, and this year, a full version. The WBC will, maybe provide a little bit of wrinkle, but he's so flexible with what he does, his ability to when he can pitch, and how he goes about keeping himself sharp. So it's going to be fun to watch him. I mean, we'll go into spring training. He'll keep throwing bullpens, try to get him to face some hitters before he leaves for the WBC. And then from then we just kind of have to wait and see where everything's at. How long do they advance through the WBC tournament? And then his ability to continue to maintain throwing off a mound, or even if he can be able to face hitters while he's gone. If he can, that's great. If not, then we'll deal with it when we get, when he gets back to us and returns to the team. The fun part about Show is, he'll pitch as long as he knows when he's pitching. He'll pitch whenever. If it's 6 days rest, if it's 8 days rest, if it's 3 days rest, he's willing to do what he needs to do to help this club win ball games. And so we'll just kind of plan it out and kind of go day by day like we always do. When we're in kind of these unorthodox situations where you can't just map out, the next 4 weeks.
And we talked a lot about the starting rotation. We know that's going to be the elite. We expected a lot out of the bullpen last year. Definitely struggled to find its footing. Now you add Edwin Diaz at the back of that the back end of that bullpen. You're hoping for probably more of what you expected out of Tanner Scott entering the season. Kyle Hurt in the mix. Bruce Dargrad are all back. We'll probably talk more about them in a little bit. But what do you like about this bullpen unit heading into the new season? Could you say it's the best bullpen in baseball, or they have that potential?
Well, I mean, bullpens are unique. I mean, it kind of ebbs and flows year to year and season to season. For me personally, you never really know what your bullpen is until they kind of form their own identity, and you can have the same players for 2, 3, 4 seasons in a row. But those bullpen identities are always evolving and always changing. And I think so you kind of have to give it time. You got to kind of let it simmer a little bit and just kind of see how that makeup starts to materialize. And, last year, we struggled on the field, but that bullpen was tight. That bullpen they stuck together. They went through a lot of adversity, but they kept kind of, showing up every day, putting their work together. Similar to what they had done, the previous season. It just didn't have the same fanfare and maybe the same, dominance from a statistical standpoint. Tanner, obviously, had his ups and downs. I expect him to bounce back and have a great season. Edwin has been one of the premier closers in baseball. And in all accounts, he's great to work with, and we've had a few conversations. He's another one. Again, I think the one common thread we have with all our players, position players and pitchers, is they got one common goal, and they just want to win ball games. I think they're at a point in their careers where a lot of them feel very confident in where they stand in the game, and so they're all about what can they do to help their team win ball games. But back to the bullpen, I think we have a lot of talented arms that can do a lot of different roles. Edwin, obviously at the back end, going into the season is going to definitely shorten the games from our starters to the finishing the games. And then you start adding Trinan's going to have a great year. Vessi's going to have a great year. Scott, you got Klein. I mean, you got so many names with so much talent in there. And I think once we get through those first 6 weeks and you kind of start seeing what that identity is, then it's up to them to kind of gel together and come together and do their jobs. But it's lining up to be, it could be a pretty fun group to watch them go in and out and go out to work night in and night out. They got a lot of talent and they pull for each other, and they're very close.
One guy I wanted to expand on ever so slightly before we let you go is a dude I'm super high on. I mean, I think this guy just got closer makeup, even though he's kind of been a starter, but I'm going to call him Big Haas, Kyle Hurt. What do you think about a potential role for him heading into the spring? I'm telling you, if there's somebody I want with me in a bar fight, it's Kyle frickin' Hurt. Dude
Well,
is a beast. But what do you like
I
about
would
Kyle
hope
Hurt?
I would hope that he's not in a bar fight.
Yeah.
We'll
Just
start there.
don't use the right hand.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, Kyle he's another one. Again, we got big boy stuff out of him with his fastball and his changeup. Another guy that we saw, you know, I guess my dating myself I guess it was at the end of the 24 season. You know, kind of what was going on with him, or maybe it was the 20. My years are all starting to blend together. But we saw what he did against the Padres late in the year, 1 year, and you saw the skill and the talent and just the raw stuff. And when you start seeing really good big league hitters, Machado, you know, Cronenworth at the time, Tatis, and you see what he's making them kind of take those awkward swings, then you know something's in there and something's real. And unfortunately, he had the injury that came up. But he's another one. I think you can put him in any role. I think he's a guy who can go in and he could, you know, be a setup guy in the 8th inning if you need him, and that's the way the game dictated. I think he could get you out of trouble in the 5th or 6th inning if that's the way the game calls for it. I think he can give you multiple innings as well. I think he has that ability, and that's the one nice thing about, I think, all our guys. Clearly, Edwin's going to be probably at the back end. Tanner's going to be mostly, you know, kind of like 1 inning at the back end. But all our guys, they're all, you know, they can adjust and they can adapt to whatever the game is asking out of them or what the team is in need of. And so that's something that has been built with our culture. And I think it goes back to, you know, almost the 2020 season. And it starts with Blake. He kind of started that, and then you kind of have guys, Daniel Hudson and Kenley. They all kind of built on it, and they all kind of compounded on each other. But they're all adapt to whatever was needed for us to win a ball game, and I think that's been the beauty to watch this team. It's not about what do I need to do or what do I need what role do I need to be in. They just need to know, like, am I available today or am I not? And then they're ready when the phone rings. And it's, again, that doesn't happen everywhere. I know it happens other places, but it's a nice, as a staff and as a coach, it's nice to watch these guys pick each other up and support each other, because that's what makes it fun and makes it a lot of fun to go out there and win ball games together.
Yeah, take the ball whenever the phone rings. Before I let you go, a 2-part question. How strange is it going to be for you, Mark, to not have Clayton Kershaw in some form or fashion in your starting rotation? And Andrew's really chomping at the bit for Clayton to start working with you guys. Are you making any phone calls to number 22? Like, hey, come out of retirement early, come work with us. What's that going to be like?
Well, it's definitely going to be different without him. There's a lot of things that have been said that, you know, I don't need to repeat. I mean, but it's going to be different without his presence. He is, you've been around him enough and you've seen it, you know, he has a presence on what he does to prepare. I think that everybody's documented that, but he's also an energy giver when people don't realize it or don't see it. I mean, this guy, when road trips are getting long or it's early nights or a quick turnaround, Sunday day games, this guy will get people going. Clayton will get people motivated. He would always bring energy. And, you know, it's going to be different. It's going to be a little quieter in the weight room. The music's going to be a little softer. He had some good tunes. So I'll be missed seeing him around. I feel very blessed and fortunate that I had a chance to just, you know, be a small part in his career. And he taught me so much about how to be a coach. You know, it's not always a linear path and a linear job, and you got to communicate through a lot of different things. But he was a pleasure to work with, and it is going to be. But that being said, Clayton will never be gone. He's always around. He'll be texting, and you know, he's doing this pseudo unretirement thing for the WBC, and I'm extremely happy for him. I know he was bummed he couldn't pitch the last time, so I think everybody's extremely excited to see him pitch and get a chance to represent the U.S. Because that's a special thing, and for him to actually have this chance and this opportunity now, I think caps everything off.